this whole connection and building loyalty. Sometimes I can go to the store to shop, to do some epistemic shopping, look around and see what we've got, do some impulse shopping, which is obviously high on the list of most retailers. But also, I can actually skip over that and integrate it into some kind of path or route that I've got on that day by just saying, I like to go in the store, but actually I just want to pick it up. I don't want the hassle of going to the store, no, I'll just pick up my stuff. I mentioned that it's a way of bringing the store management and the online crew together so the store own this operation. And I think that's been the big disconnect for me in terms of retailing, is that the multi-channel silo thing still applies because you've got the bright young things in the digital and you've got the mainstay of stores. If we can bring online into being for these retailers who only have online now as a revenue stream, learn the processes, refine them, improve them, professionalize them, make sure the customers are integrated into their lifestyle, then I think that the future of click and collect is very strong. Welcome, and thank you for joining me today. My name is Gary Newbury. I'm a senior executive on call, helping businesses in a make-move-sale flow of consumer goods and services. My purpose is to inspire business leaders, particularly those within the consumer products and retailing space, to think big, be bold, scale, adapt and win, one epic supply chain transformation at a time. There's additional content available through my website, RetailAID.ca, or on my YouTube channel, RetailAID. Be sure to check it out. As the business world faces much volatility, uncertainty, complexity and ambiguity, organizations need to be tapping into resources with an inside edge on transitioning their teams to be agile, innovative and digital, with thought leaders, experts and senior executives who have mastery of operational turnarounds and strategic transformations to help reorientate their enterprises. There's great material to get through here, so let's get started.
This is a Retail Insider podcast. You're listening to a special edition.
Welcome to the special edition of the Retail Insider podcast. This is Retail Insider's editor-in-chief, Craig Patterson. We're speaking today to Gary Newbury. He's one of Canada's top retail supply chain strategists and a serial transformation executive. We're also speaking to John McClymont. He's a supply chain and operations professional, and we're speaking to both of them today about click and collect and its future in retail. Welcome to the segment, gentlemen.
Thanks, Craig.
Thanks.
Great to be here.
So we'll get right into it here. Are we anticipating click and collect to expand in Canada as COVID-19 takes hold? And tell me a little bit about the future of click and collect in Canada.
You know, click and collect, if it's not going to expand, or if they're not thinking it really should expand, I mean, click and collect as an alternative to home delivery to the Amazon type created expectations really allows Canadian retailers to leverage their brick and mortar, their investments, their supply chain, the way that it was designed to reach people very, very quickly. You know, there's a lot of discussion about micro fulfillment centers and being able to have your warehouses close to market. The ability to leverage your store inventory and have that near instantaneous. I say that because, you know, ideally it would be same day, but, you know, you can have very short windows for fulfillment is a huge opportunity for retailers to take advantage of through COVID-19, but, you know, especially after, when there's even more free flow of movement.
I would add to that, John, by saying that I think the history of multi-channel retailing has been very much to keep the e-commerce side very separate from the store management side. The stores are where all the action is, and the e-commerce side has been like almost an adjunct to all this. I think click and collect, almost cerebrally or strategically, allows the stores to own this part of online and also therefore own the whole proposition. The home delivery is still one of those things that one might discover fairly quickly isn't highly profitable.
Let's talk a bit about Amazon. Given that Amazon Prime service is currently showing a month delay or sometimes even more, as I found out today for essentials, what kind of strategic opportunities does this provide for Canadian retailers to, kind of get control of their narrative and be able to move forward and compete?
Yeah, thanks, Greg. It was a great question. And who would have thought, even 2 months ago, as Amazon have compressed the lead time and educated their customers that to expect next day from online, that we would be given this opportunity, that Amazon have had to almost stand aside. And they're on to, as you mentioned, Craig, a month lead time. Who would have found that to be even acceptable from Amazon? So this is a great opportunity for Canadian retailers who have either no online presence or very underdeveloped, or have one, but it's never really been taxed, to really step up to the plate and say, hey, we can get you going here with our customers as long as we actually say and do, and they're aligned. It's when we say and don't do, that's when we're, let's put it this way, we may be putting a whole brand, when we try and put our brand online, because many of our stores are now closed and the only option of revenue is online. When that fails, it's not that we lose a few sales on that day. We may lose that customer for good. So it's really important that as we think about click and collect, that we start thinking about what do we say, what's our proposition, and then how we're going to deliver that. So we have a consistency in the consumer's mind developing. Every time they use us, they start to build this pattern. I order at this time, I get it at that time, and there's a reliability, a good feel from a customer's point of view, and that can only build loyalty.
To build a little bit on what Gary's saying, that first and foremost, like I'm an Amazon fan, right? I get that they have some challenges, and obviously there's certain practices that are finding themselves in the media these days. But at the end of the day, despite the challenges they're having, I think they've done an incredible job. I mean, they've been able to really scale up, ramp up. I mean, the reality is, I'm not sure how many other businesses in the world would have been able to handle a surge and an extended surge like Amazon has. With that said, I also think that that's really important to understand. Amazon has been building for this world for 20 years. This is their expertise. This is their bread and butter. This is everything that they've invested in through proprietary technology, proprietary warehousing designs, revolutionary warehouse designs with their in and out process. I mean, cutting edge everywhere. And you can see how all of a sudden with that surge, it's just taxing the system. They'll get better. They'll find better ways to manage it for sure. But I mean, that in itself should signal to other retailers who are, following what I joke a little bit online called a we can do it too strategy, about just following the types of things that Amazon is doing, because Amazon is so heavily invested and created so much of their own world that even now we're seeing, some of the bumps there. So the opportunity really then is like, okay, there's their infrastructure, there's everything that they're doing. It's not 100% perfect. It definitely has its challenges. How do I use, my infrastructure? How do I use my expertise? How do I use my supply chain to win back this battle? And, now all of a sudden there's a different seat at the table, as Gary was talking about people's expectations with delivery and speed and certainty and reliability that Amazon has created with that excellent execution of their home delivery. Now all of a sudden people are seeing that falter a little bit. Huge opportunity to shift that discussion and pivot a little bit on the perspective and say, there are other ways that can be equally as convenient or interesting. So despite the challenges of COVID, it's a really great opportunity now that you actually have people's attention in a really captive way.
Oh, that is so interesting. And in terms of the customer experience, we'll say for click and collect and curbside pickup, what would stores have to consider to, I guess, remain competitive at this time?
I'll jump in just a little bit. Gary's probably laughing because he knows I've created a little bit of an idea behind why I think Amazon has certain success that they do with people. I think there's a couple of things. First and foremost, just like Amazon did with their direct to home, you have to establish your credibility, your reliability, and your certainty. You need to have it just work. You can't say that you're doing click and collect or that you have this service and then it only works half the time, or, you're only getting one of two products or whatever, right? So, the first thing is just that simple execution. I mean, I always used to laugh in my previous roles, for example, the customer really what they want at the end of the day is really simple. I want what I want when you said I'm going to get it, right? So I think that people really underestimate how hard that can be at scale and to do it consistently and reliably. So that, that in itself is the first opportunity. Once you're stable, I think there's a whole host of opportunities then about how do you create differentiation and how do you create that personalization and that customer contact? How do you do it differently? For me personally, I think I would be focusing on my structure, my reliability, that clean in and out process, that I have what you ordered. I told you I have what I ordered. And as COVID, hopefully fades away and we get a little bit back towards normalcy, that's when I would start building my differentiation. Well, how am I as one retailer going to do it better than the other retailer? And that's like a whole other host of things that you can do to appeal to your customers. Gary, what do you think about, that service level aspect and that experience?
I think that you put your finger on it when you said the words to the effect of what's in the customer's mind when they deal with you, and are you consistent about that? And that's really important. And as you dive into the differentiated offering beyond COVID, you start to look at things like, and you may have records to help you here, lifetime value. So you have gold customers, you may choose to give them gold service. You may give them, say, hey, Mr. Jones, if you want to have your shopping done in an hour, we'll have it ready for you. But maybe the occasional customer doesn't order much more than, say, a widget, and there's not much money. You go, well, you've got a 4-hour window here. And as you trade more, you go up the curve. But I think this question's all about trying to influence a consumer to buy with you. How do you build loyalty from a consumer's point of view? How does a consumer think your operation runs? And to all intents and purposes, that's how you run, although you choose to do something differently inside the store when you're doing click and collect. But it's having that idea in the customer's mind. I place my order, they run around the store, have it ready for me at this time, a fixed lead time or a certain time in the day, always. And then the customer can actually integrate that into their day-to-day lifestyle. So I order, say, from Home Depot, and always they have it ready for me at 1 o'clock. So I just organize my time around that, and that becomes ingrained into my lifestyle.
I wanted to highlight something. I saw Gary do it, and it just kind of spurred the moment, but I don't know if you noticed, but as he was describing that customer experience, he just, without even thinking, because obviously he appreciates and understands what could be done there, but he said, oh, Mr. Jones, we have. Right off the bat, that is such a powerful tool, and it's such a huge advantage that the online businesses have, right? Their data. The second you sign in, the second you're connected, all of a sudden, all of that data about you, your entire purchase history and your activity becomes part of their algorithms for suggesting products and for doing different things. Click and collect, as opposed to traditional brick and mortar, you walk into a major retailer today, who are you? Like Gary said, are you the gold customer, the platinum customer, are you the bronze customer? Are you the customer that's opportunistic, that only goes there based on sale prices or whatever? The point is that with click and collect, Mr. Jones, who is Mr. Jones? And from that second, you automatically have the opportunity to decide how that experience is going to go. So anyways, just a quick thought that was right there, because it's a really sort of simple and powerful way to blend that human element, that warmth, that empathy, and that context of having that social exchange, while facilitating all of the convenience and still having all of that information, so that when the person comes up, how was your day, Mr. Jones? Totally different than walking into a store and being like, go use the self-checkout that we were accustomed to today.
Or after something, a widget, where is it? Oh, aisle 32, get on with it. Very personal.
Exactly.
And tell me a little bit about what is good speed in terms of click and collect. And I had an experience a while ago with a Canadian Tire store back when they were open in Ontario, because they're now shut down temporarily, in terms of speed. Because when I ordered something, they even said it had arrived, and I went to the store and it wasn't ready for me. And I just thought, well, I don't really want to, use this again. That was annoying. I could have just gone to the shelf and got it myself. But what kind of turnaround time are we thinking? You did mention that having a specific window during a day would certainly make sense to give some at least reliability.
each retailer has its own context, its own kind of thing it's working through with its consumers and trying to attract them in. And it may be that a particular segment of a market wants the reliability of having it in between 2 and 4. You place your order at this time, you get it between 2 and 4, or it may say, place your order now and you'll get it in an hour. You can pick it up in an hour, or some variant around that. And there's probably a few others I overlooked. So speed, I think more importantly, it's not speed, it's consistency. So if I'm going to say it's an hour, unless you order 2,000 components, in which case there's no way, a whole team of pickers could actually pick 2,000 in an hour kind of thing. So within the framework of what is the kind of what we call order thickness, how many lines are you going to pick? As long as you hit a certain boundary within that. And if the customer we're trying to appeal to is like an urgent, do it now kind of person, or they're looking for ordering at 5 o'clock leaving the office and then want to pick it up on the way home after they struggled down the 401 and for 6:30, the retailer just has to understand what that perception of time is, and then frame that correctly in a way that a language that a consumer will kind of understand and appreciate, and again, build loyalty around.
Like I mentioned, speed is an interesting thing, because at the end of the day, I don't believe speed is everything that we've made it out to be. To me right now, speed and delivery is probably a little bit like the CPU wars that we saw, back through the late 90s and early 2000s, right? I think that there's a perception, and like digital cameras, that more megapixels means better. A faster CPU clock speed means better. Faster delivery speed just means that I'm better. And I think that that's the way a lot of the industry has been going, because that's a bit of a model. That's things that people understand. I think really what it comes down to is understanding, what does your customer need? What do they want? Some customers, you have to appreciate, hey, I'm competing with them either coming in the store, or they do want it right now. They will want it same day. They will want it within an hour or two, because that's what they're used to when they're being able to go into the store. Some people, though, just maybe want it when they want it. And I think that tying that back to the idea of customer experience is another opportunity for click and collect. I might be sitting down and say, oh, you know what, I really have to pick up that product. You know what, I know I'm going to so-and-so's house on Friday. There's one that I pass all the time. Today is Tuesday. I want to set it up to pick up Friday, between 6 and 8. That is, so speed is one alternative. I think really what it is how do you better meet your customers' needs? How do you meet them where they want you to be? How are you executing when they want you to execute? And I think that's the whole idea of customer experience, is that if that's what you need, Mr. Customer, then that's what I'm going to do, right? If I need to hold it for 3 days, then I'm going to hold it for 3 days because you've already told me you want to buy it. So I think that there's an interesting play between speed. You have to be able to do it quickly if that's what a customer wants. I don't necessarily think that an entire system should be based on every order being ready in an hour. Because if I place an order for click and collect at 9 a.m. or 10 a.m. and I've got my full workday ahead of me, I'm probably not going to go there until 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock anyway. So I really think it's about, how do I complement my customer's lifestyle, their routine? How am I most convenient for them?
I think that, just to build on the point that John makes with thinking out aloud, is that maybe the option is that there's a standard expectation or standard service, but you can vary it. So for example, if I order on Monday because I know I'm going somewhere on Friday and I'll pick it on the way home, the retailer has to enable that as an option. That doesn't mean that we wait until the last minute to pick it. We might, if we've got the resource around us, we may go and pick it. And as long as we've got somewhere to store it and to locate it, so we know where that order is when we need it, then so be it. And it may be the compromise between all this, or the benefit of all this, is that within the order taking process, we give the consumer some options beyond our physical handling time. So physical handling time might say we could do it in an hour, but we don't do anything less than an hour. We could do it in 2 hours, nothing less than 2 hours. But after that, if you want to come in at any time that we're open and offer this service, you tell us what day and what time you want to pick it up.
Yeah, I think where speed is the most crucial in that whole process isn't necessarily your speed to deliver, to put that in their hands. I think the speed to confirmation and to security is really where then that could be a big differentiator, right? If I make my order and within 15 minutes or 20 minutes, you're confirming to me I've got that for you. That I think is important, right? I mean, I don't want to, I made a click and collect order from a tech store, and I did the purchase. 2 hours later, I went into the store. They say, oh, we have to send you the email first. It's like, listen, there's no reason you shouldn't have been able to just go grab that item off the shelf in 2 hours. So I think that's where speed is important. And then, like Gary said, after that, it becomes, how then do I best serve you? What's most convenient? What's the best way that I can complement your lifestyle, your schedule, your routine?
Excellent. I'm thinking about the store design. Canadian Tire has these kind of tower things that they've got for click and collect. Some stores you can drive outside and they'll bring it to you, type of thing. How should retailers kind of look at the design of their stores? Say car parking, entrances, interaction, which I think goes to customer service and general layout. Tell me a little bit about the store itself and how it should deal with click and collect.
Obviously, I think that there's a couple of things. One, I think it needs to be a key and integral part to any new store design, right? It's really figuring out how they're going to master that flow and the way that they want to marshal people. The challenge that you're going to find with most retailers is, one, they already have a lot of infrastructure that, they're not necessarily going to invest tens of millions or hundreds of millions of dollars in massive capex, or they may just be constrained because of the fact that they want to put a particular store, maybe a smaller format store in a very specific area, for example, bottom of a condominium or whatever, right? I think at the end of the day, that's one of the more challenging aspects, because you really have to understand, okay, what's my geography? What is my type of customer, or, the biggest type of segment of customer that I see, and manage it. For me, it comes down to, how do you effectively create a good flow? If you have the ability to design properly, separate entrance, maybe separate kind of counter, kind of like the way a restaurant might have a takeout window area that, you can do some really great things. Barring that, how you get as close as you can to servicing people quickly without making it annoying. Gary?
I think I've got an interesting transition period here to get to exactly where you're going for. Because at the moment, if we take Home Depot, Canadian Tire, whatever, nobody's coming into the store except the staff. In a normal world, we wouldn't have this luxury of space, but we have right now for a number of weeks. It could be a couple of months, who knows? And we could actually, at store level, and we know when we say Canadian Tire, they're all franchises, so each store will be very kind of personalized to its resourcing plan, how its management chooses to execute against this. But if nobody's coming into the store apart from staff, and we have the systems and the processes that help us through this and allow us to get very clear instructions about Mr. Jones, Mr. Smith, Mrs. MacArthur, whatever, we can organize our space. We can actually take out the till area, or not, or remodernize it, and take all the end caps and all the baskets out of the way, and say, this is our space. We're actually going to get masking tape and lay it all out, because we can take masking tape up and change it around. We don't have any customers in the store. So in the store end, we can actually create space in store to allow us to effectively work out what's the best way to organize and execute click and collect while we have this window, and then learn from that very quickly to get to some of the points that John's made. Similarly, on the outside of a store, for car parking arrangements, well, we won't have anybody come into the store to park. We'll have people come into the store to do curbside pickup. So we can actually ignore all the current grid parking slots and actually think we probably could get some metal gates and some signage to actually direct the customer's vehicles to come into a certain sequence. Now, how would we, I was trying to think about this earlier on, how would we help the customer to tell us, without having to phone us up, forgetting the number and all that kind of stuff, how would they tell us they are in our vicinity? Now, we could do this either, and sort of the very simple idea was like when you go to, I guess, the doctor's appointment, you pull a ticket down and it gives you a number and you wait for the number to come up, and you park yourself and present yourself to the doctor when that number's arriving, or in a bank or whatever it might be. Now, we need the sort of technology version of that. So when the customer's vehicle turns up, they scan something with their mobile, because we're high tech, and that alerts somebody in the store to say, oh, Mr. Jones has just arrived. and he has some kind of number that he has to kind of sequence himself into the queue of cars, and there may be nobody, there may be 2 or 3 cars there, and then somebody inside the store picks the order up and literally comes out the store. Mr. Jones may have already got his trunk open or not, but the goods are deposited in the trunk, and the trunk's slammed, and the customer's done. So I think when to John's point about flow, we need to look at the whole flow of this. How is this all going to coordinate? Because I can tell you my experience with another retailer, who's already been named, was absolutely uncoordinated. And this wasn't a retailer that was doing a mad scramble to get e-commerce up and running. This was somebody who had been operating click and collect for a couple of years. So it should have been a completely painless experience. It wasn't.
So, and, Craig, just to come back, speaking about what could you do, let's say you don't want to change anything with your store, and I want to execute click and collect today significantly better than is done today. What Gary talked about with technology or saying, oh, how would you do that? Some people might hear that and be like, oh, see, you got to develop all kinds of stuff. Not true. All of this technology is already readily available, right? If I were designing click and collect, if I was working for a major retailer today and my job was to wow a customer on that experience, here's exactly what I would do. My app would be registered from the time that they say that they're coming to pick it up, on their time window. I'm registering their location on the phone. When they get into my car parking lot, it's automatically going to send a message inside that they've arrived or that they're within 5 minutes. I mean, the reality is all of this ETA type information is readily available and calculable these days. Next, in my parking lot, I would just do what the parking companies are already doing. I would have my spots pre-numbered with the signs right in front. So as I pull up as a customer, I pull into the spot, I look to the sign in front of me, I go into the app, I click that I'm picking up, I put in my parking spot number, done. I just hit send, no calls, no nothing. The store should already be alerted to the fact that I've been on my way and that I've already initiated the pickup process from a while ago. That transaction should be seamless. They could be doing that within minutes. Clean, simple, and you just wow people in and out. And that technology is all available today from stuff that people are regularly exposed to, like Uber and parking applications, and the store's individual apps already.
Excellent. So while I was recording, while we're recording this podcast, funny enough, I was actually shopping on the Zara website and bought a few things, and they're going to be delivered to my home. What do we think about the future of click and collect, where, say, the consumers would have to go to the store to either pick something up or get it on a curbside delivery? We've seen contactless deliveries being promoted quite a bit, or at least I've been getting a lot of pitches. Tell me a little bit about the future of click and collect and why. We talked about the profitability lack thereof, with larger retailers or any retailer trying to actually do home delivery. Would you think there's going to be a balance, or what do you see in terms of the future for the click and collect in Canada?
Look, the reality is home delivery is always going to be there. I think the danger or the warning sign is to be very, very careful and mindful of becoming transactional, right? If at the end of the day, all you are is shipping brown boxes and you don't have any particular pull or connection with your customer, what happens then if you're the manufacturer and now you want to sell through multiple channels, or what if you feel that you have to go into other areas? Click and collect also, I think, has a huge opportunity for, those types of things where people want to either support local, right? Because whether it's a big retailer or not, the people working in those stores are all part of your local community. There's a lot of items, honestly, that the economics of it just don't make sense. They might be fine in a bundle, but in small quantities, they're exceptionally challenging. And I think the other thing that we have to be mindful of too is sustainability, right? Everyone is talking about the environment and climate change and the impact on our planet. The amount of trucks that you would need in your neighborhoods to deliver at a huge, let's say that 50 or 60% of shopping was all home delivery. And home delivery is the least efficient way you can do anything, because you're making very, very small item drops most of the time to one unit. How many houses are on your street? How many streets are in your neighborhood? And how many neighborhoods are just like yours? How many trucks do you need? How many drivers do you need? And how much infrastructure do you really need? Do you want a warehouse at every corner? There's a whole piece to the economics behind online shopping for suppliers that I think is a whole different kind of discussion. But, I think that people they like to shop. They like to have a little bit of autonomy. They like to still have that connection to the store. I think click and collect then allows them the opportunity to still leverage that experience, something that they maybe saw last time or whatever, get the convenience that online is often providing. But with, a little bit more safety, security, they know that they're going to get the product. It's going to be a little bit easier on the planet because you're not shipping boxes and driving trucks around, with the same low density. So I think that there's opportunities there. But, look, online, people love the idea of just not even having to think. And Amazon is doing a great job with things like Alexa, right, where they're going to even further condition people just to ask for an item and never think about it until it shows up on the doorstep. So it's an interesting space, but I do feel that the click and collect still gives retailers a better opportunity to manage their customer experience, which I think is going to become more and more important in a world that's moving more transactional.
Yeah, I think that to the point that we've talked about earlier, that this whole connection and building loyalty, sometimes I can go to the store to shop, to do some epistemic shopping, look around and see what we've got, do some impulse shopping, which is obviously high on the list of most retailers. But also, I can actually skip over that and integrate it into some kind of path or route that I've got on that day by just saying, I like to go in the store, but actually I just want to pick it up. I don't want the hassle of going to the store and all that lot. I'll just pick up my stuff. And earlier, I mentioned that it's a way of bringing the store management and the online crew together so that the store own this operation. And I think that's been the big disconnect for me in terms of retailing, is that the multi-channel silo thing still applies because you've got the bright young things in the digital and the fulfillment of that, and you've got the mainstay of stores. If we can bring online into being for these retailers who only have online now as a revenue stream, learn the processes, refine them, improve them, professionalize them, make sure the customers are integrated into their lifestyle, then I think that the future of click and collect is very strong. If you add in home delivery onto that, there's some clear rules. You need small cube, high margin, and restricted geography to try and make the last mile element of that offer pay. And typically, customers don't buy your small cube high margin product. They dip around in the things that you don't want them to buy to make profit on home delivery. So, and to the point that John made about, if you're, as a retailer, you're expecting to do your own delivery and you haven't got any sensor skills, so you're having a truck and it's diving around your town trying to do 2 deliveries and then rushing back and picking up my next deliveries and go out and doing 2 deliveries. This is incredibly expensive. Even down my leafy boulevard, I regularly get a FedEx, a UPS, Purolator, and maybe a Canpar every day. And they're dealing with potentially hundreds of retailers trying to access my neighborhood. Imagine what that might look like if all those parcels were delivered by individual trucks. I would be complaining to my local municipality, I suspect. But I think that as we stand today, I think doing home delivery, unless you want to lose a lot of money very quickly, I think retailers really need to focus into this click and collect. And the advantage or benefit to me is that it brings people to the store and it allows store management to start to own this process. And the whole thing should work in harmony, as opposed to where it possibly has been in the past, where it's very disjointed and disconnected and everyone's sort of beating inside each other. We're talking about cannibalization, online's cannibalizing stores, and getting into an awful lather about that, when actually this is a golden opportunity to bring it all together and say, here, stores, we're bringing all the stuff to your store. Your customers can either come into the store and buy, or you can just deliver it effectively on a BOPIS or curbside click and collect process.
I think at the end of the day, too, other people, there's a lot of talk on networks like LinkedIn and everything like that. People talking about long supply chains, talking about look, the reliance that we have on other countries. That's not untrue. But often people forget the fact that a lot of those decisions are made because of the fact that time and again, people are voting that they want to pay less. They want to get a little bit more for their money, right? That dollar is being ever stretched. So, a lot of those decisions about where something is manufactured, where it comes from, where, what options are there, they all roll in, right? In terms of the offer that a retailer can make. Things like, for people, if click and collect wouldn't work, then you should almost be able to make the argument that physical retail for the most part wouldn't work, and all that goes away. And if all that infrastructure went away and all of those jobs and all of that experience, that potential to shop went away, would people be more satisfied or not? Click and collect, in my mind, is a way to bridge the gap between being able to go into the store and still provide you with the convenience of online, in a way that allows the retailer to still exist, right? Because the reality is none of them are going to be able to survive if they're all losing money. So they need to be able to make money. They need to be able to pay their staff. They need to be able to run those businesses. How then they use them is up to them, right? I mean, click and collect plays really well into the idea of thinking of your stores not just as stores, but as fulfillment centers, which means that then you could have hyper localization. What is very popular by people in this particular area that I'm going to, in this store. If you go to some of the retailers now, you'll notice that they say that they do have clothing that represents the city or the region or the part of the town that they're in. So, I think that it's an ability to leverage your stores, make them do more than what, they traditionally were used to doing or expected to doing, and bridge that gap between this notion of centralized warehousing or smaller scale warehousing. Amazon's talking about, we're making smaller warehouses closer to communities. The things are still hundreds of thousands of square feet. These aren't exactly small buildings that they're talking about, in order to ramp up the speed. So, I think click and collect plays an interesting, it's got an interesting role in how do we want our future to look? How do we want to support our communities? How do we meet people's need and desire for convenience and ease and simplicity when they want it? I'm not omni-channel. The idea is thrown around a lot. It's a buzzword and stuff like that. But it really is. people, depending on their particular situation that day, that week, that year, whatever it could be, will have a different choice. So you do have to offer them. All, but at the same time, I think that where retailers are not being careful is that I think that they're being very reactive. It's either in store or online, and like Gary pointed out multiple times, that's really where there's that big shift, because COVID is showing us that even the best in the world are struggling with keeping up with a huge surge or management. It'd be interesting. A lot of people just don't really know what the warehouse world is like, and all of that picking and all of that product, that flow. And I think that that's where a lot of some of these ideas or feelings, about, I'm just going to order it online. It's like, there's a big machine that makes home delivery possible. You just don't usually see it.
One of the things that we have to address, and we probably have to just surface, is stock accuracy. This is critical to giving confidence to the consumer that when I place my order, it will be, it won't be cross-substituted. When I'm looking at what's available in terms of SKUs and also quantities, and it says, only 6 left, sir, you go, right, I'm going to have 2 of those. I want to know, I'm going to have 2 of those because I've ordered 2. I don't want substitutes. I don't want shorts. The critical thing of all retailers that should face up to, and something like click and collect could really encourage people to think more clearly about stock accuracy, because you want to make sure that when the customer comes, they're picking up what they've ordered, not substitutes, not shorts.
And the funny thing about that is that people will use that as a big criticism of click and collect. They're like, this is, look what happened. This is what happened. The reality is that for the majority of retailers, the only reason why that doesn't happen when you're on their website is because, like Gary said, they treat the businesses separately. Well, that's not too hard if I have 1 warehouse or 2 warehouses that I'm funneling orders to, and my inventory picture is just for that warehouse that I ship out of. I don't believe that the lack of innovation or the inability to create holistic inventory systems should be the benchmark that's being used to measure how well something could be executed. There's lots of opportunity for improvement in those areas, because when a customer, whether it's online, click and collect, or realistically even wanting to go into the store, if your website says, I have X on the shelf or I have X in the store, it should be there. That's the expectation. That's the promise you're making when you put that message across the screen.
Thank you so much for being on the segment today. We're speaking today with Gary Newbury. He's one of Canada's top retail supply chain strategists and a serial transformation executive. And we've also got John McClymont. He's a supply chain and operations professional. We were talking today about click and collect and the future in Canadian retail. So for more information on these guys, you can connect with them on LinkedIn. You can go to our podcast page for further information. And hope everyone is doing well, staying safe, and ideally staying indoors when possible during this time. Thank you so much again, everyone. Take care. Bye for now.
Thank you for listening today. I hope the information has been valuable for you and your team. You can connect with me via the website retail.ca and go to the contact page, or via LinkedIn by typing linkedin.com/in/last-mile. Look forward to hearing from you and playing an active part with your supply chain and your business's transformation as you start to act boldly, think big, scale, adapt, and win.